Hi, we are a group of students at VIA University College, and in this video, we will present you our semester project for the sixth semester. The purpose of this project is to create a web application hosted in a cloud provider, which will be used by movie lovers to search for movies, create favorite lists, and check other users' lists. Now I will describe the cloud setup that we had. As a cloud provider, we chose Azure due to its flexibility and intuitive interface. Before starting coding, we had to set up the web application and how to deploy it. In Azure, we used the student subscription provided by VIA. Then we created a resource group, which will be used also for the database. Here, we enabled the continuous deployment, and then we set up the GitHub account, repository, and branch, which shall be deployed. Now I will show a bit the GitHub actions that we set. After setting the continuous deployment in Azure, a YAML file was generated in the repository in here. Everybody worked on his personal branch, but each time when we were pushing into master branch, it will be automatically deployed to Azure. In the Actions tab, you can see all the deployments to Azure.
Next, I'll be talking about the database setup. We chose Azure SQL database because it seemed the most accurate and easy to manage option at the time. After creating the SQL server, which was needed for hosting the database, we created the actual database. We chose standard S0 and locally redundant because for this project, a faster database or a more safe backup was not needed. So this made sense for fitting the budget that was provided by VIA. The tables were created in Azure Data Studio. Next up, I'll be talking about connecting to the database. In the backend, we created a DB context class for representing the table structure, which will be used later for accessing them. Then we created the data receiver class. In the constructor, we used the connection string from Azure database. For this, we disabled the Azure Active Directory login method. By doing this, we prevented the need of the login each time the web tries to retrieve data from the database. Now I'll be showing you an example of how the register method is handled in the backend. Each time a user creates an account, a unique favorite list is assigned and created. That thing can be seen in the lines 26, 27, and 28. Then the account is saved and created.
Now I will talk about a bit the API that we used. For retrieving and displaying the movies, we chose to use TMDB Open API. We used this because it was easy to generate an API key from the TMDB website. This is the API that was generated from their website. And then we used their guidelines for creating HTTP requests.
So once you have learned how to use the TMDB API and how to send a request by reading its documentation, the only thing that we need to do is to implement it in our project and to actually use it. So let's try to see a bit how we can do it. To use the TMDB API, one of the fundamental things is to have an API key. By registering an account and by requesting for it, you can have this key that allows you to access the resources of the platform and to send any type of request. So it could be to post or to get some data and etc. etc. So once we have this API key, we store it in this class and we create an HTTP client object that will be the one to send the request and to retrieve the responses from the TMDB API. We have also here a variable that contains the base address, so the common address that would be for every request, every kind of request. The only part that will be changing will be the part after that will specify what we're actually requesting for, so what we're looking for or what we're trying to do. We can see it more in detail in the class, in the method getMovies right here, that is supposed to get all the movies from the database. And we can see here the request URL, how we specify that, for example, in what's movie, that it uses a specific API key, then the page of the movie, of all the movies that we're trying to see. And once we have that, we use the HTTP client to send a request using this URL and to retrieve a response. And once we're sure that this response is successful, we can read the response as a string and we can deserialize it using JSON in a way to store some pure string data into objects that we can use in our solution. But let's try to see a bit better how we can do this. For example, in the class movie details, we have many attributes, and one thing that they need to have is that they need to match the JSON property names of the data that we retrieve from the TMDB API. In that way, once we retrieve the data, it will be immediately transferred and converted into the right attribute. So for example, the the property with the name release date will be stored inside this attribute in the class. And the same will be for the JSON property poster path that will be stored in the attribute poster path, and so on and so on. So in this way, we can make some data usable and effective for our project. Now that we know how to retrieve data from the web API and how to use it, what we need to do is to make it possible for our users to see this data in a very effective way and to perform some actions. To do that, as we were using C# as our developing language, we decided to use the Blazor framework to have an easy connection between frontend and backend. And we'll explain to you a little bit what we did and what were our techniques for that. As a first example, I will show to you the movie list page. So this is the page that is supposed to show all the movies using the method that we saw before, of which we saw the implementation before. And I will start showing how there is a part dedicated to HTML and CSS code, able to still use some real coding or programming syntax and some objects, and how we have a code part that instead is supposed to retrieve the data, may perform some operations on it, and so on and so on. So let's try to see it but more in details. Here we can see we have the search component to search for a specific movie by title. Here we have a small menu to access our favorite list or all the other favorite lists of other users. Here we have a filter bar to display all the movies or maybe only the ones from a certain decade. As we can see here, 2020 or 1980s and stuff like that. Then we have the real class, the real part that shows the list of movie. And as we can see here, there is some syntax from programming language to display all the movies present in the movies object. And for them, what we want to do is to display their postcard using the source code provided by the web API. Then we want to show, of course, their title, the release date, their vote average, the vote count, and here a small function to add the movies as our favorite. Also, we can see here there is a function connected to each movie card. So for each movie, we can say when there is on click on them, you are directed to the movie overview that will show you more information specific about the movie. So how we can do this is the code to display the information, and how to retrieve the data displayed is just simple, since we have a list of movie details and we just use the TMDB API client method that we described before. And when we run it, the solution is going to be something like this. So a list with the search, the menu, and the filter that we wanted, but more importantly, all the movies that we wanted to see. And as shown before, we can open a movie and see the movie overview with some other data. And this is basically how we did it. And there will be many more things explained at the end of the video in the demo.
Next, we'll be talking about testing. Overall, black box testing plays a crucial role in evaluating the functional aspects of the system from an end-user perspective. By focusing on inputs, outputs, and system behavior, it helps ensure that the system meets the intended requirements, functions correctly, and provides a satisfactory user experience.
Because the project's main idea was to use continuous integration, for testing the front end, we use Selenium together with Robot Framework. Because it's Python-based, it is very intuitive and easy to use. The advantage of using this framework is that after writing the test cases, you just have to run them and it will automatically open the web app and behave like a user. After the test suite was run, the test report is generated, and in the screen right now you can see all the logs from the test suite.
In this demo presentation, we will be able to see all the methods that the user is able to perform on our platform, from the most generic ones, like registering an account or logging in, to the more specific one, like adding a movie to our favorite list. But let's dip into it. Once we access the platform, the first interface is the one for the login, but let's say that we don't have an account yet and we need to register one. We just need to insert a few informations, our name, a unique username, And in this case, I will use a username that I know it's already stored in the database to see if our system is able to notice it, and a password, and to confirm that password. If we try to create the account, we're going to have an error because a user already exists with the same username. So we're just going to change it and make it unique so that we can go on with our test. Once we created an account, we can log in using the same credentials that we just used. And we can finally access the movie Imperium platform. The first page, movie list, is dedicated to the 20 most popular movies at the moment. And not only we can see more than 20 if we scroll between the pages using the buttons at the bottom, but for each movie, if we want to know something more about it, we can click on them and see a movie overview with all the details that are stored in the database. So for example, we have the title, the director, the vote average, vote count, a short overview, and the 10 most influential actors that participated in the cast of the movie. If we want to know more about one of the actors, we just need to click on one of them. Could be Keanu Reeves in this case. And exactly, we can see an actor overview with his name, a picture, and a short biography about their lives. Let's try to see a little bit the functions that are available in this platform. We can search for a movie specifically by using the search bar and inserting the title and pressing the search button. If we do that, we're going to see only one movie in the list, and from it, of course, we're able to see the overview with the actors and with the short overview. Then we can filter all the movies in the movie list. In this moment, the filter is set by all, so all the movies are displayed. But if we change this to 2010, for example, we will be able to see all the movies from 2010 until 2019 ordered by popularity. And the same works with all the other decades, of course. If we want to see instead which was the most popular movie by each year, what we need to do is just to access the Hall of Fame using the banner on top. So if we do that, we need to wait a few seconds for them to load. And once it does, we can see all of the movies ordered by year and the most popular, as we can see the example here. If we go back to the movie list, we can decide if we like a movie more specifically to add it to our favorite list movie. And we can easily do that just by pressing this button at the bottom of a movie card. If we do that, we will see the overview again, but then we can check the menu and we can access our favorite movie list. And if we do that, we can see the movie that we just added. And at any moment, we can easily remove it from the list. And we can see that we have no movies at the moment in our favorite list movie. If we would like to add one directly from the list of movies, we just need to search for it by title. And once we found it, we can add it. And we're going to see it in our list. Instead, if we're curious to know what movies are other people liking in this moment, we just need to access the menu again and press on View Others Favorites List. If we do that, we can see only three, up to 3 movies of the favorite movies of other users. So we can see Adi00 liked Fast X and Nicola01 liked these 2 movies. But if we want to see more than 3 movies, we just need to press on the title of the list, and we have a clear interface that displays all of them. So we can really understand what each user is liking in that moment. And for our system, that's it. Thank you very much for listening and for your attention.